Morning.
Hello.
Hi there. Good to see you. Are you both well?
Yeah, fine.
Have you recovered from the Loders, whatever it was, hurricane
Tornado.
Or the mini tornado. Well, thankfully, being a mini tornado, it ripped apart the other end of the village, so our house was left unscathed. But there were many houses
Because you're the righteous.
The sunshine.
I did drive through Loders the other evening. I think it was Monday, possibly. Yeah, on the way back from the hospital with Jay, I drove through, cut off the road because there was traffic backing up from Bridport. So we cut through Loders and didn't realise what had happened. Then saw the roof opposite the school, on the thatched roof, half blown off, wasn't it, Chris?
Yeah, it took away a lot of the thatch. It blew down a couple of chimneys. The school's been closed for a week, but I think it opened again yesterday because it damaged that roof, and it just took down numerous trees within the path of this mini tornado. But those that were outside of the path of the mini tornado were untouched, to the point of one of my neighbours, he lost a load of trees, his roof got damaged, and at the other side of his garden, he said, I had some perspex just leaning against the wall. He left that intact.
Yeah.
There you are. Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that for the good people of Loders. And I hope all gets sorted for them soon. Is it classed as an act of God when you try to claim off your insurance, I wonder?
I don't know what the legal term is.
Because sometimes
legally, as rectors, we ought to know the definition of an act of God, didn't we?
It's me.
Bless you, my child.
Thank you.
I think I know what I believe an act of God is. It's what the insurance company believe an act of God is that counts, though, isn't it?
You not an advisor to the insurance companies? I'm
not. No. It's not one of my jobs. Many they may be, Chris, but that's not one of them.
Oh, is that an archdeacon's job or a bishop's
I think so. Defining for the insurance company what an act of God is. Yeah. There we are. Well, Sunday is Remembrance Sunday, isn't it? Remembrance Day.
That's back to the acts of men instead of an act of God.
Back to acts of men.
Well said.
And what does God think of it? That's probably a question we could think of. But should we take a pause and then I'll read? So a reading from the Gospel of St. John, chapter 15, from verse 9. As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I've kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. I have said these things to you so that joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. As I do not call you servants any longer, because the servant does not know what the master is doing, but I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from my Father. You did not choose me, but I chose you. And I appointed you to go and bear fruit that will last, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask him in my name. I am giving you these commands, so that you may love one another.
So that reading's a bit of an antidote to what we're thinking of, really, times of conflict and war.
Yeah, I remember preaching on that many times, but one particular year, and I'd read an article in the Church Times, and the article was saying that that particular passage from John at times of war, and particularly during the First World War all the time, was completely twisted to suit what was going on. You know, it's great. You, young man, go to the front, get yourself shot and killed because you're doing it for the man next to you, whilst us officers will sit as far back from everyone in safety and not get touched. And it was quite a good article. I remember not using the article, but quoting a little bit from it about how the gospel can be misused, I guess, at any time. But on Remembrance Sunday, if we're not careful, we misuse that to suit a point we want to make.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what Chris was saying a few weeks ago when we were talking about Bible Sunday.
Yeah,
you know, that's always a possibility, that people can use Holy Writ to make the point they want to make. And
But also, I would say the point that this reading is making is, I'd probably go back to Martin Luther King. You know, love is the only way to stop wars. I mean, because whoever wins a war, all you're doing is increasing hatred.
yeah.
You know, Martin Luther King says hate can only amplify hate. Love's the only way to stop it. And at some point, you could. I think, what's the phrase? You can win the war but lose the peace.
yeah,
You know, so realistically, these people that are currently warmongering are they're not going to, they're not really trying to get hold of peace, or they're not going to achieve it, because all they're doing is increasing the people in the opposition's hatred, which will just amplify war, and then the hatred will be returned, and it's on an amplified spiral at some point. And I think this is the message where the Bible does tell us something, is actually you've got to find a way of breaking the spiral, providing your neighbor with a happy life, your enemy with a happy life. You know, love your enemy so that they don't want, remove the desire for them to hate you, to make them love you.
yeah. In fact,
the spiral.
I mean, Martin Luther King, we're using, you probably can't see that, it's all back to front, but that's the Advent book we're going to use this year. And it's called Stick with Love. And it's a great quote from Martin Luther King: stick with love because hate is too great a burden to bear. And in some ways, it feels easier to hate because it just, you know, sometimes you don't want to let go of your grudges. But you have to eventually talk to people, don't you? And stick with love. I don't think you could get much of a better sort of motto for how you live your life, really. But it is hard work sticking with love, I think.
It was interesting, Deb and Chris, because yesterday, being Wednesday, of course, my weekly trip to Mapperton School, to the Parishes at school, was on, but the Siams inspector was in for the day. And he was a nice guy. He was actually an ordained priest from Truro Diocese. He's associate minister who works for Siams. And he sat there, and Joe and I have been doing a course with him in the first term about the Lord's Prayer, teaching them the Lord's Prayer again, because it's been a few years since we did that. And we were on about how do you forgive those who trespass against you, and you whatever. And part of what I was saying with the children is, you know, if you were an Israeli or a Palestinian, I don't want to take any sides, because they both suffered tremendous problems. But if you were one of them, and suddenly Jesus appeared today and said, I want you to love each other as a way of solving this problem, what do you think would happen? And of course, children being children, as you know too well from your school visits each week, they have the perfect answer, don't they, because of their naivety. You know, one little girl said, if Jesus was there, I'd say to him, can you tell people to stop it? And you know, and whilst that seems naive, actually that's, I think, what, you know, I said to him, you know, I think that's probably what Jesus would say, you know, but you'd also want to love them as a sign of this is what you do, lead by example. And I think, you know, what Chris said, that book, that's the Archbishop of Canterbury's book for Advent.
The Archbishop of York.
York, yes, he does the Advent one, doesn't he? Yeah.
And yeah, but I think Yeah, that's a really good point. I don't know if you've seen them, but there's some really lovely little videos, and they're interviewing children. I don't know who does it, and they have children on screen, and they say to them, what is the biggest difference between you two? And it's very obvious, because you see children, a black child next to a white child, or a disabled child next to an able-bodied child, or someone with red hair and someone. Very obvious differences. And then then they ask the children, and they're going, and then they go, she likes peas and I don't. Or they come up with something which is really obscure, because they don't see the differences in the same way that we do. And maybe that would be a good thing, to look with new eyes a little bit more, because I mean, I guess we are thinking about what's happening in Gaza and elsewhere, Ukraine and everywhere, but we all know, don't we, especially with what's on the TV, is that children are caught up in the most awful way in this conflict. It's it's heartbreaking, really, and yet children, the way they look at the world, maybe we could learn a lot from. Yeah.
David Jenkins, who was at one time Bishop of Durham, I think he's died now, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
In a book of his that he wrote about peace and violence and hatred and whatever, he put a cartoon. He talked about a cartoon where God was sat on a cloud, looking down at all that was going on in the world and fighting and killing, and the caption underneath was God speaking, saying, "If you don't stop it, I'm coming down to thump you."
Send a tornado.
Well,
what's been going on in Loders?
Exactly. Yeah, and I think you're quite right. Children have this, yes, naive, but this understanding. I think they understand that hating and fighting, because one of the little boys, we were talking there about how much do you forgive, because the reading Joe had given was the forgive 77 times 7 times, and I asked them, does anybody know how many times that would be? And within 2 seconds, one boy had told me the answer for 249 or whatever it was. And I said, well, if somebody took your sweets off you, are you prepared to let it happen 249 times and just keep on letting it happen? And he looked at me and said, yes, so long as it doesn't happen 250 times.
Oh, really?
The inspector who was sat at the side just smiled, because he's obviously done the same and been there before. And he's probably heard many people, as he sat in watching them do this kind of stuff. And yeah, it is that. But Remembrance Sunday, of course, then in Bridport, you have quite a big parade, don't you, being a civic church, so to speak, Debs?
Yeah, we do. And it's very important to people. And I mean, this year I don't know if it will get in the Bridport news, but I just wanted to say to people, because loads of people fill South Street, and we have the Act of Remembrance outside, and then many of us troop into church and we have a service. And I just wanted people to know that they can come in. It doesn't matter how people mark it, and maybe just being outside is the way. But I always think it feels like we've kind of disappeared in, and I wonder, if people feel, oh, that's not for us. So I don't know if it'll make any difference. But we have all the youth organisations and all the standards, and it makes a big impact on everybody. But it's happening everywhere, isn't it? I guess, I saw the notices in Beaminster for the parade, and everyone is in their own ways keeping it.
We've slightly changed this year the service, because it gave us an opportunity to get rid of one that's been printed way before I came, we've been using, because it mentions the Queen at a good time. And Chris Luckraft, who and some people who watch will know, he's one of our partner priests, but having spent 30 years as the naval chaplain, has rewritten a service which involves the children in coming forward and lighting candles and helping to read the names. And we've got the, I think, prefect from the senior school going to read the epitaph at the end of the service for people to leave to, things like that.
Yeah.
And but Chris has for the last few years really tried to press the British Legion to understand, the First and Second World War, of course, important and remember, but many other conflicts have happened since where people have lost their lives. And it's actually about looking forward to the future and the families that have been left behind and how they're coping. So that's part of what we're doing. And I'm going to be interviewing a Marine, a Royal Marine who lives in Beaminster. His family live here, who I know very well through the cricket club. And I'm going to be interviewing him about life in the forces today compared to what we heard last year about what it was like from people who'd served in the Falklands 40 years previously.
Yeah. What about over your way, Chris?
Well, all our services are relatively low key, because I think realistically, being in the villages, the major military people go to Bridport rather than come to our little churches, and so but it's no less meaningful for it.
No, that's right.
And I mean, I almost think actually this year remembrance is probably more important, not just to remember the previous wars, but it's almost a case of worldwide we've forgotten how horrible war is, and we've gone back there. With what's happening in Israel, Gaza, what's happening in Russia, Ukraine. It's easy to sit in our armchairs and support side A or side B, but war's so horrible that we've forgotten just what it's like to lose people. And love has to triumph over all this horror.
We need to stick with love.
Yep. And God's great commandment: love God, love your neighbour. That's a good message to come to an end on, really. Love God, love your neighbour. Remember those who've given their lives, of course, and celebrate with those who are trying to bring about peace wherever it is in the world, and thank God for His continued hope that we can hold on to for peace for the future. Although I'm sure if you're an Israeli or Palestinian or Ukrainian or Russian, you may have worries about or doubts about that. But all we can do is hang on to what we believe God is saying to us. Chris, we were talking just before we started to record that poor Scruff isn't very well. I know a lot of viewers like Scruff. Is he all right today? Was he barking earlier, or was that the sausage thing?
That was the sausage thing that was barking. Yeah, no, poor old Scruff had a stroke.
Oh, poor
Scruff. He's
Scruff.
been quite poorly, but he seems to be recovering at the moment.
Oh, that's good.
And poor old sausage thing doesn't understand that Scruff might not be very well, so Trees tries to treat him like a plaything.
Oh dear.
Where's your dog, Deb? Was he a minute ago?
She got fed up of me. She likes to sit here because I'm facing the window and she likes looking, but she got fed up of me talking. A lot of people get fed up of me talking, so she's retreated to the sofa.
I thought she'd gone to chase the rodent that you saw escaping from your garden.
Yes, I did see a rodent trooping out of the drive just a minute ago. Luckily, Polly didn't see that, or else she would have made a lot of noise. I don't know if it's come back in. It's like it was just nipping off to the shop or something with a little bag under its...
Perhaps it was trying to find what was left in yesterday's market. You never know.
Maybe, maybe.
What's around, Well, there we are. Well, Div, lovely to see you. Thanks again. As we say, you know where we are. You found us because you're watching us. I know Harry will put probably all the details. Thanks to Harry as well for production again. And we'll see you next week when we'll be into kind of week no one knows what to do within the church. It's kind of between all this remembrance stuff and the Christ the King, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, we can be creative.
It's
Will we
Creation Tide as well, isn't it? As another option.
Yes, Creation
Uh,
Tide. Yes.
Well, I mean, asking us to be creative could be dangerous. So let's leave it there and see what we come up with next week.
Yeah. And I hope, Chris, that you're impressed that David and I, the old dinosaurs, managed to get Rev Chat out without you last week.
Oh,
yeah. What a good job you did.
I know. I mean, I did have a few problems finding. I couldn't find how to turn off the recording.
Right.
But
Right.
Anyway, it all went fine.
We
So,
found
I
it in
knew
the
it
end, though.
would be safe in your hands.
yeah,
we
well,
found-
we missed you. We missed
We
you.
never asked you, Chris, very briefly. Did you get more than bread this time at your retreat? Because we did comment on that in Rev Chat.
Yeah, we did, because I was up there for All Saints, and
Oh,
so it was a feast day.
did you have wine?
No, but tea. No, they
Yeah, 'cause
didn't quite go that far.
when I went to I think it was Burford before they moved, I was there for Candlemas, and at lunchtime they gave us a glass of wine as well.
Oh,
And they said, because it's a feast day, you can talk.
yeah,
It's
we had,
very
we had a talking lunch.
Yeah, did you? Yeah.
Because
I like going to Perth. I went there a few times. It's good, isn't it?
Lovely. It was lovely. I mean, they've moved now. I haven't been since
They have.
moved, but
Yeah, they have.
when I went there, it was when all the snowdrops were out. It was really beautiful. Yeah.
It's like the sister that wanted you've gone, haven't they now?
Yeah.
They were good. They used to come to college when we were at Cudston and do personal appointments, and you could talk to them or whatever. They were lovely.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
Anyway, there we are. You've got to go and do. Is it communion?
Yes.
Today, Debs?
Yes. Got Eucharist over in Allington, so I'm going to dash off.
And in a few moments, when I've done what I've got to do, I've got to record our the address for our online service. So thanks for all your help, because I'm sure I'm going to pinch a lot of what you've been saying and sharing with me. So
Yeah, same here.
Now, if you watch both Rev Chat and the Beaminster Team live service, I'm sorry if you get a repeat. There we are. Good to see you. Bye-bye now.
All right,
everybody.
bye.